Do you need a hero today? Welcome to the Drapery. Dr. Chris Baker, DC here. Got a little Skillet hero theme song for today because we're firing off on all heroic cylinders. Alright, basically want to go over deck tech. It's really simple. It's just a small update that I did to my Boros heroic deck that I played last weekend. Bava actually played it in the week 3 for the standard proper gauntlet, but I chose to play this deck today both for SPDC and for week 4 of the standard proper gauntlet. Main cuts were 4 Satyr Hoplite and 1 Inferno Fist, so that cuts our red requirement a lot, but Dragon Mantle really lets us do work with a lot of excess lands, especially these dual lands in these mountains. So didn't need to cut any mountains. We actually added an additional land to go up to 19 plains because we put in Wing Seed Rider. What I kept finding was that the ground gets stalled very easily by a lot of decks, and even like the 1-for-1, it's great on turn 1, but we have so many comes into play tap lands, it's hard for us to take advantage of it. I'd say Satyr Hoplite is better suited for a mono red heroic deck because it can always come down on turn 1 because you're playing mono mountains in that deck. But this deck, I noticed it could win the late game. It just really wanted evasion and also a creature that had more than 1 toughness to get by Scouring Sands and Fester Gloom right when it came into play. So the only part about this guy is sometimes you don't want to run him out there on turn 3 because he'll die immediately to Magma Spray, Freakish Curry, Debilitating Injury, Last Breath, and all that, and you want to play it on 4 mana and hold open a God's Willing or a Defiant Strike. But he's just so powerful that he's worth including. But the rest of the deck was pretty stinking good. I love the 12 cantrip heroic enablers chosen by Heliod, Dragon Mantle, Defiant Strike. They all have different uses. The heroic creatures of Skyguard, only 3 Trailblazer, and the Crusaders and the Wingseed Riders is pretty great. And Jeskai students overperforming in this style of deck. When you're prowessing and just cantripping all the time, he just gets out of control pretty quickly. And he just hits. He's hard to kill, and then he just has a turn where he can get damage through, and that's all you're really trying to do. Sideboard changes were a little bit different. Pillar of Lights are great. Scouring Sands are still great. I cut 2 Magma Spray and replaced them with 3 Lightning Strike. So I cut 2 Magma Spray and I cut 1 Fall of the Hammer. What I was finding is that Fall of the Hammer is not that reliable because you have to have a creature in play with a high power for it to do anything. And we cut one of our heroic creatures that grows and is a 1-drop, and it's not like Trailblazer's not going to have high power in the early game that much, but you really want to be able to trigger heroic and maybe kill a Death Touch blocker every now and then. But then again, this is sometimes just better. So there might be better things than Fall of the Hammer. I kept finding it to be not the best, not knowing what to use it for, especially because something like Lightning Strike I thought would be better than Magma Spray. I didn't think fast, slow, or fast, or we were too slow for the fast aggro decks because we are a pretty fast aggro deck. I was more worried about them bricking us with big blockers, things like Return Phalanx, Servant of Timuret, Disciple of Phoenix. Magma Spray does nothing against, and I'd rather have a more expensive card. This card is going to cost us more, but it can at least kill a lot more things. And the utility of going to the face is actually really good. This card's so solid, it probably should just be in the main deck. But I really like having this super synergistic deck in game 1 and then just siding into whatever you think you'll need. And then I took out Setessan Battle Priest, 3 of them, and put in 3 Hopeful Eidolon. And it's weird, situationally, sometimes one is better than the other. And I always thought last week that this card would have been better as a life gain spell because it can gain a ton of life immediately. And the other guy just can die immediately, or if you top deck him, doesn't really gain you any life at all, which is when you need it. So I figured this card was a lot better. Another thing to keep in mind is even Sungrace Pegasus. 1/2 flying lifelink for 2 mana. Seems pretty great with a couple of things. Inferno Fist seems pretty great. Dragon Mantle seems pretty great. Defiant Strike seems pretty great. Just protecting it with, you know, God's Willing, Feet of Resistance, chosen by Heliod. And if you're just in this mode where you're playing against a deck that's trying to burn you out, anything with, you know, red burn spells or even Great Merchant type decks, it's also another flyer. So it's interesting. I totally could see, you know, Sungrace Pegasus getting it over Jeskai Student even, potentially. It's just easier to kill. It requires other things to happen for it to deal more damage, and again, we don't really care about lifelink that much because we're usually able to race very effectively. So that's why it's in the sideboard. We don't really need to gain life a lot of games. We can just kill people quickly if we kind of nut draw them out. But overall, the deck has not changed that much. I was humming and hawing like I usually do, always at the last minute. I wake up on a Sunday morning, I have no idea what deck I want to play for the event, and I just look through like all my decks and I try to see what I think is going to be good. And I was like, yeah, let's run this deck back, but I think the changes that we made would make it a little bit more robust. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you just need a hero. You know, and this deck basically just called out to me. It said, I can be your hero, baby. Alright, so we're going to have double feature. I'll give you the SPDC replay analysis, 3 rounds, and then the top 4. And the week 4 of the MTGO strat in the 3-0 bracket there. I also played the same exact list. I felt so good right after the SPDC event that I figured I'd run this exact list back. I'll talk about potential change. I already kind of talked about potential changes, but really it's just follow the hammer. Other than that, I think deck's fine. Alright, stick around and we'll get some matches coming up soon.